It's been a pleasure working with you, Mr. Leach. I'm glad the board ruled in your favor.
Thank you, Dr. Loomis.
With your permission, I'd like to place you under guard for the first few weeks you are out. It's been months since he's killed anyone, and who knows where he could be, but I want you to be safe.
Yeah, I appreciate the offer, Doc, but I'm looking forward to some time without somebody looking over my shoulder for a change. I'll be fine. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? So Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 tells the story of Laurie Strode as she deals with the trauma of the events of the first Rob Zombie's Halloween, just as Michael Myers decides to come back and finish the job. Well, we're finally here, everybody, coming to a close just before Halloween 2018 drops, which I'm going to be seeing later tonight. Can't fucking wait! Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, the final Rob Zombie Halloween film, the most recent Halloween film that we have gotten. The reason why we have this new 2018 reboot, sequel, requel, whatever you want to call it. One of the most hated movies that I have ever seen. Even on my review of Halloween Resurrection, which from my understanding is like the universally accepted worst Halloween film by far, I got dozens of comments saying, well, at least it's not Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 makes this movie look like gold. This ain't as bad as Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. This movie has some extreme hate from all different types of Halloween and Michael Myers fans. Now, funny enough for me, if you know anything about my channel and you've seen previous reviews of mine, I'm not a very big fan of Rob Zombie, to say the least. I've seen every single film that he has put out, and for the most part, I have major grievances against every single one of them. And I've said before, I think that he has a phenomenal horror movie in him somewhere. If he just takes the elements of each of his films that he gets right and puts them together on one project, and one of the biggest things, let somebody write his movie, Rob Zombie will deliver a phenomenal horror film that will be remembered. A lot of people will say that Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 is one of the worst movies ever made. Easily Rob Zombie's worst film, easily the worst Halloween movie in the entire franchise. I'm not one of them. That's right, people. Get your fucking pitchforks ready because I am going to be defending the shit out of Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 because I love this fucking movie. So going right into the positives of Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, I really love the approach that he took with this at kind of being a mirror image of what he did in his first film, which is a very centered piece on Michael Myers as a character and the psychology of that character and what makes that character become what he becomes. This movie flips that and it focuses on the psychology and the inner workings of Laurie Strode and the trauma and all the PTSD and everything that she's having as an effect of the events of the first film. This is Laurie Strode's movie. And this movie goes way in depth as far as showing how fucked up this girl is from all of the things that she endured a couple years ago at the hands of Michael Myers. And as far as I'm concerned, he didn't quite stick the landing, to say the least, with the first film at showing the descent into madness of Michael Myers. A lot of his story direction felt very forced, it felt unnecessary, it felt like it was answering questions that nobody was asking. This movie succeeds in showing the descent into madness of Laurie Strode in spades. Even just the opening of this movie, which everybody bitches about, the hospital setting, the hospital sequence that we have. You have like the first 15 minutes of this movie, and you get everybody, one of the most common complaints that I hear about Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, it's got a 20-minute dream sequence, it's a fucking waste, the first 20 minutes of this movie was great, and then you find out it's a dream and it's bullshit, it's so long. This dream sequence is not the entire first 20 minutes, first of all. It's like 7 minutes of that entire sequence. When the movie opens up, Laurie Strode's walking down the street covered in blood. She just shot Michael Myers in the face. Sheriff Brackett picks her up. She goes to the hospital. Michael Myers is getting driven away by this coroner van. The coroner van hits a cow. He comes out, slaughters the fuck out of Richard Brake. Then you have Laurie Strode wake up in the hospital. Everything previous to her opening her eyes in the hospital was real. That was the actual epilogue of Rob Zombie's Halloween. The sequence where she wakes up in the hospital, that entire badass sequence where that entire gruesome, brutal ass sequence where Michael Myers shows up at this hospital, slaughters a fucking nurse by just stabbing her like 40 damn times, hanging people up on rafters with their eyes cut out like a scene from a rated R version of The Birds. You get the whole guard shack sequence where he's blowing through these wooden panels and everything, which was an actual real guard shack. Tyler Mane had to destroy that fucking thing. And then that final shot of just coming down with that axe. And one of the coolest shots of Myers, if I can say so myself too, of him standing in the rain and kind of doing this little head turn and his hair's all wet. That's a badass shot. That's a tangent. That entire sequence, awesome. Thrilling, brutal, fucking no holds barred. And it's only like 7 or 8 minutes of the entire opening. So that whole argument about the first half hour of the movie, no, you're wrong. If you don't like that sequence, fair enough. I think it's awesome for all those reasons I just listed. And getting back to my point about Laurie Strode, it's awesome because that sequence alone not only pays great homage and a little bit of a tease to the original Halloween 2 from 1981, but also completely gets you on board and clues you in and catches you up with where Laurie Strode is mentally as a character. This is a dream sequence that she endures on a nightly basis. This is something she experiences almost every single time she goes to sleep. And the movie, all it has to do is show you that one sequence, have her wake up, show you the timestamp of how long it's been, and have her explain that this is something that she goes through every single night. Boom. Automatically you're caught up. Moving on from Laurie Strode, another huge thing that people have grievances towards this film that I actually love it for is the very unique take that they have on Michael Myers as a character. There's so many different things. This movie breaks all the rules about Michael Myers. He doesn't wear the mask through most of the movie, which gives the mask a purpose because he only puts the mask on when he's getting ready to fuck somebody up.
Yeah, you fucking beat him to a pulp.
So just like in the first movie, we get certain scenes where Michael Myers as a child puts the mask on whenever he's getting into killer mode. This movie kind of expands on that. And Michael Myers is just kind of wandering the earth as this bum, looking like Rob Zombie himself, if I can be honest. This big-ass beard, burly, long hair. And whenever somebody starts messing with him or he sees somebody that he wants to cut up, then the mask comes on. And I love that. I love the look of the mask. Even after part of it gets torn off, I love the look of it. It's so unique and different that it appeals to me all the way through. I even like the little thing they add where Michael Myers grunts and kind of makes this verbal sound whenever he's stabbing somebody. To me, that kind of adds to the brutality of the scene. Like, Michael Myers being absolutely dead silent works for the original version of the shape, OG Myers, if you will. This new version, this Rob Zombie version, this more grounded version of Michael Myers, to me it makes more sense if he's gonna make sounds like that. Okay, fine, you don't talk. That doesn't mean that you just... That seems silly with this version of Michael Myers. I think Rob Zombie realized that, went for broke, gave the dude some voice, and gave him the grunting sounds like when he's stabbing somebody. Very stylistically different, and again, something that I like quite a bit. And speaking of grunting while you're killing, this movie is brutal! Easily the goriest of any of the Halloween films, at least until this new one. That one might beat it, we'll see. But Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 is gory as fuck. These kills are so graphic, like when he's just slowly sawing somebody's head off with some glass, or when you see eyes gouged out, or when he's stomping a dude's skull in for like a 30 seconds straight. Brutal and awesome. Going back to one of the main strengths that I did give Rob Zombie credit for as a director in Rob Zombie's original film, Halloween, he carries over into this with his camera, his cinematography, his shot direction, all this different stuff that he does as far as framing his movie. He does just as well, if not better, in Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. I love the cinematography in this movie. Some of the best, coolest scenes in this movie is like the big open cornfield at night, and all you see is these headlights where these rednecks are coming to start beating the shit out of Michael Myers, and Michael Myers is basically just a silhouette, especially when he goes to put the mask on. All you see is darkness because of those bright-ass high beams. Different shots like that, the entire hospital sequence, even some of the more toned-down sequences in the movie that aren't really focused on Myers or killing, just maybe Laurie Strode walking around town or sitting in her car getting this big revelation in this book. The way that he shoots this movie enhances everything that he is going for story-wise. One of the biggest saving graces of this film as well is all of that nasty, vile-ass Rob Zombie stereotypical dialogue, that redneck fucking 70s grindhouse porno dialogue that he inserts into every fucking movie that almost ruins his first film because it goes on for like a straight 20-minute sequence of just fuck and cunt every third word. That is toned way down in Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. There's like one scene in this movie in the opening act with the coroners where Richard Brake is like, fuck, fuck, oh, fuck, fuck, fuck. He just keeps saying fuck. And it is obnoxious, and it is a little bit of a turn off, that scene itself. That is another just flaw of Rob Zombie that you're just gonna have to accept when you watch one of his films. Hopefully not forever.
Fuck, 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 fuck. Oh, God. Fuck. Fuck. Fuck.
But that's really the only scene in this movie that's like that. You get past that, at least in the theatrical cut, you don't really get too much more Rob Zombie shit. It's a very straightforward, much more well-written, dialogue-driven film. Now, moving into the characters, I actually think Scout Taylor Compton does a much better job in Halloween 2 than she did in Halloween 1. And it is mostly because Rob Zombie focuses the movie on her. You actually get to know her this time. She's not just trying to do the Jamie Lee Curtis storyline. She's not just trying to hang out with these sexually driven friends and just feels out of place. You get to know her in this movie. The movie is driven by her performance, and I think she delivers in that. She delivers in showing this mentally damaged, deranged, fucked up, descending into madness version of Laurie Strode. And right next to her is Danielle Harris returning as Annie. Again, broken, fucked up, tormented about the events of the first film, but taking it in a much different direction because she didn't lose her father, she didn't lose her family, she didn't lose her entire life. She just got kind of fucked up a little bit. She's got some scars. Laurie Strode, all of her scars are internal. They're on her fucking brain, her psyche, all over the place. Annie is more like a survivor of this physical torture that Michael Myers brought to her. And Danielle Harris does very good in the role. I'm not gonna say it's her best performance in the world because I think that it's hard to top what she did in Halloween 4 as such a young girl. But in Halloween 2, she's very good at kind of being this nurturing, kind of understanding, always there for you friend to Laurie Strode. You get a lot of her range in her performance in the scene where she's actually killed, and her fear and her kind of calling out for help and all that kind of stuff. Heartbreaking stuff. And speaking of heartbreak, and speaking of that scene alone, when Annie's body is found by Sheriff Brackett, played by the great Brad Dourif, my boy Chucky. Brad Dourif gives damn near an Oscar-worthy performance in this film, and I'm not exaggerating on that one little bit. Even though I love this film to death, even though I am a huge defender of it, even though it's one of my favorite Halloween films of all time, Brad Dourif's performance and the level that what he brings to this movie Halloween 2 is almost undeserving of it. It's almost like this should have been in something else because he is so damn good. But he's in Halloween 2 and he elevates this movie to a new level just with what he brings to this 2 years later version of Sheriff Brackett, trying to nurture these two girls, taking in Laurie Strode, trying to protect her from the truth, trying to protect her from the physical threat of Michael Myers if he ever does come back. And then the scene whenever he finds his daughter, again, for the second time, butchered by Michael Myers, only this time, she's gone. Watch that scene and don't get choked up. I dare you. And even when you get to the final act of this movie, when he is so rage-fueled and just wants to fucking kill Loomis with every bone in his body, another layer of his performance that's damn good. And you believe it. You're like, dude, Loomis, I don't care about Michael Myers or anything. You better get the fuck away from that sheriff because he is going to tear you a new ass. And my final positive, which is one of my biggest positives for this movie, which I've addressed slightly before, the reveal to Laurie Strode about her bloodline, about the fact that she is Michael Myers' long-lost sister, the fact that she is Angel Myers. Brilliant in my mind. The way that Rob Zombie wrote the revelation, where you have Loomis writing this book following the events of the first film, trying to capitalize on it, trying to have a little bit of greed, and he puts that in there as the selling point, that there's this truth that he discovered, which he does discover in the first film, that he's going to unleash to everybody for fame. And Laurie gets a hold of that book and finds out that way, alone in her car. Brilliant. It's heartbreaking. It's traumatizing for her as a character. It adds this new depth of shithole to the character of Loomis that they go for in this, which I will address. Keep your panties on. But to me, this is the one aspect that even if you hate this movie, even if you despise it, even if you cannot stand even talking about Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, there's one thing that I have a hard time believing that every Halloween fan could not admit to, and that is the fact that this movie gave us what the original films never did. We never got any form of We never got any form of revelation on the Laurie Strode character brought to us by Jamie Lee Curtis about Michael Myers being her brother. There was never any scene in Halloween 2 about her finding this out, about Loomis telling her, about her finding out some other way. She never gets told in that movie. Loomis finds out, then you have the third act, Michael Myers is presumably dead. The movie ends. Then we don't pick up with this character again until 20 years later in H2O, and when H2O starts, she's already known that she's Michael Myers' sister for God knows how many years, and we never got to see how. We never get to hear how. She just knows because the audience knows. That's one of the biggest gripes that I have with the original line of Halloween films, is that we are robbed of that brilliant revelation scene that Halloween 2 by Rob Zombie gives to us, and gives to us brilliantly. Now, as much as I gush about this film, as much as I want to defend it, there are some things that Rob Zombie fucked up on in Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, and I am going to address those here. These are problems that probably everybody has with this movie, but all the shit that I defended, I like. This is the stuff that I will agree with all of you haters on. So, strap in. Time to agree with you. Let's get the big one out of the way first. The least favorite aspect of this movie in my mind, the biggest misstep that Rob Zombie made with this, Loomis. Now, Loomis wasn't exactly a glowing positive in the first movie, because there's just no way you can recreate Donald Pleasence's Loomis, and it seemed like a carbon copy of that. There wasn't enough new about Malcolm McDowell's performance of Loomis. You get into Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, and with no transition whatsoever, he goes from being the Donald Pleasance version of Loomis, trying to help, trying to save the day, trying to contain the evil of Michael Myers, to being this greedy, money-hungry, fame-hungry prick that is insufferably assholish to everybody. No transition whatsoever. We get this character, and then we're right up here with this character, right at the beginning of Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. Now, I will say, the overall story arc and character arc that Rob Zombie was trying to go for with Loomis, about this redemptive arc, about him making this mistake and having to sacrifice himself to save Laurie, or at least try to save Laurie, to try to make amends for what he has done, for putting her in danger. I think that was a brilliant direction to go for that character, but he did it the most fucked up possible way you could have. There should be no reason that Loomis could be that extreme opposite of what we know that character to be. You could add elements of that. Maybe he's traumatized, he's just given up on stuff, he's kind of feeding into the fame a little bit, or he's trying to go for a little bit of greed, that way you have the whole revelation with the book. You can have all of that stuff and probably do it very well, but that's where the Rob Zombie writing gets in the way, and he just goes too extreme. He does not know subtlety, and Loomis suffers miserably at the hands of Rob Zombie's writing in Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. The second biggest issue that I have with this movie is that stupid white horse bullshit. Again, why does Sherry Moon have to be in every fucking Rob Zombie movie? I swear to God, there must be some kind of a line in their marriage contract that says, motherfucker, do you ever make a movie, I get one of the lead roles, or I cut your balls off, sign here. There's gotta be something, because he puts this bitch in every single movie that he makes, even when she was fucking killed in the previous movie. No, we'll bring it back as this ghost. Look, I keep saying Rob Zombie's not that great of a writer, and this is one of the bigger shining examples in his movie catalog. He's trying to be so metaphorical with this white horse and this ghost of the Myers mom, I forget her name, Deborah Myers or some shit like that. And he's trying to have this be like the metaphor of what drives Michael Myers. And Michael Myers is driven by this memory of his mother and this symbolism of this white horse. And it keeps showing up continuously throughout this movie, following all the way through to the end when Laurie Strode sees this as like this symbol of her complete descent into madness. This white horse shit is stupid. Visually it's stupid because Sherry Moon cannot act and she just looks like this. Bringing back the H2O eyes. It's dumb. It doesn't land at all. It seems ridiculous. It seems out of place in the movie. You can have symbolism for descent into madness. But again, Rob Zombie does not know subtlety and he goes for extreme, and this white horse shit is fucking retarded. One of the issues I have with Myers himself is that Rob really struggles in Halloween 2 in balancing that human and supernatural element of Michael Myers. In the first film, there really wasn't any supernatural element to him at all. It brings a lot more of that into this one because of the white horse stuff and, you know, being a lot more metaphorical and a lot more lucid and a little bit more trippy with the way that they kind of execute Michael Myers. But there's things about Michael Myers in this that just is inhuman. Like the fact that he is just walking the earth, motiveless, you know, directionless. And then all of a sudden he's willed to go back to Haddonfield like this by his mother, and he just makes a 180, and now we're going back to Haddonfield. And it just doesn't really make any sense. It doesn't make any sense how he knows exactly where Laurie is. How does he even know that she stayed in Haddonfield? How does he know exactly where in Haddonfield she is? He shows up at this party, knowing that she's there somehow. Then they leave, and he immediately shows up at Sheriff Brackett's house, which he somehow knew where the fuck that house was. And he shows up quick as hell. He's there like a ghost. And it has this weird, supernatural, larger-than-life, inhuman quality to Michael Myers in this film that just, it's either not executed well or it just doesn't belong there, and they should have just went all grounded, all human, because there's just so many questions raised about how the fuck does Michael Myers know all this stuff, and how is he just willed to do everything? It's a little bit question-raising. Going back into characters, although I do think Scout Taylor Compton does do a much better job in this version of Laurie Strode, and I do enjoy this version of Laurie Strode for the storyline alone, I do dislike the forced 70s hippie, total Rob Zombie style that she has. Again, that's just one of those Rob Zombie stylistic elements that he has to insert into his movie, whether it fits or not. And to me, it doesn't fit. Just this preppy, goody two-shoes, A++ student girl that looks like something off of a CoverGirl model, where she's just head to toe, stereotypical, clean picture of innocence virgin girl. And then you get this and she's like, has halfway dreadlocks, she's working in some fucked up hemp bar, weird shit with some trashy friends, listening to 70s grindhouse music. She's got Alice Cooper posters and graffiti all over her walls. It just doesn't fit to me. It's such an extreme change, her style, that doesn't fit. If she had held on to somewhat more of who she was in the first film, and just had some more rebellious stuff involving her characteristics and her tone and her delivery and maybe some style elements there, it would have gone down a little smoother for me, but it's just such a huge shift, again, just like Loomis, from A to fucking Z, that it feels forced to me. Small negative, but when I see it, I am kind of like, you didn't need to do that, Rob. We all love Alice Cooper. You don't need to do that. Speaking of her trashy friends, yes, some of the minor side characters in this movie are completely immemorable. Like, you don't remember who they are, what they are. The girl comes in and says, "What's that, Dick Lickus?" And that's about the only thing you can remember about her. But to me, that's not a gigantic thing on the movie because the movie doesn't really focus on side characters. It's very focused on Laurie and Michael for the most part, but fair enough. There's some characters in this movie that could have been written better. Again, Rob Zombie's writing.
I'll be right back. I'll be right back. Give me 1 second.
Where the fuck are you going?
I gotta take a piss. I don't have to pee since I got here. I'll be right back. Don't go to her.
So who says I wasn't into the water sports? Give me a little golden shower.
That's gross.
But the final negative, and then we're gonna head out here and go check out Halloween 2018. Again, like Rob Zombie's Halloween, please watch the theatrical cut. Because just like in his original Halloween, his director's cut is a far inferior version of this film. It adds a lot more dialogue that doesn't need to be there. It makes Laurie almost unlikable. I mean, almost to the point where you're like, okay, I'm not even on your side anymore. I like Annie. Oh, fuck, she's dead. God damn it. The director's cut just adds all this stuff. It adds all this really vile dialogue where Laurie is just cussing out Annie at every chance that she gets. She's just insufferable. She's miserable. She just lashes out at everybody who loves her. And I get that you're trying to make it seem like she's just so miserable and so fucked up that she just wants to be alone and everything. I get trying to go for that direction, but again, I don't think Rob Zombie was successful in it. And it makes Laurie unlikable. You watch the theatrical cut, all that shit gets hacked away, and we get stuck with the Laurie Strode, who is damaged, who is fucked up, who does lash out on occasion, but she's the Laurie Strode that you like, and she's the Laurie Strode that you can get behind. At least the 2% of us that like this movie. And aside from Laurie Strode, I promised I would discuss this. God, if you watch the director's cut of Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, be prepared for one of the biggest what the fuck were you thinking moments in film history. Michael Myers actually speaks. In the final act of this movie, Michael Myers pushes Loomis out of this shed, holds him outward, and says, "Die!" and then stabs him. And he delivers it pretty much the same way that I delivered it. What the fuck was that? You're gonna finally make Michael Myers speak, and you do it in the most ridiculous, corny, insufferably, hilariously, miserably, embarrassingly way you could possibly do it, Rob. What the fuck were you thinking? But if you watch the theatrical cut, that bullshit's not in there. It's actually a good ending. It's brutal. People fucking die. Painfully. Bye, Loomis. But all in all, guys, while this is definitely a flawed film, just like any film that Rob Zombie puts out there, and hopefully one day he will get past those flaws, I am an endless defender of Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 because I think that this movie is ballsy. I think that it's far and away the most ballsy and unique sequel in this entire franchise. And naturally, that's gonna piss a lot of people off. That's gonna turn a lot of people off. But if you're like me and you're on board for the changes, you're on board for what Rob Zombie was going for, and you're on board for these new stylistic changes to not only the character, but the direction of a Halloween movie, like not including the John Carpenter score. If you get past all of that and you see what this movie's going for, and you understand what he's going for, and you like what he's going for, Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 is a complete misunderstood, badass Halloween film. So while you certainly need to know who you are, gauge it off of how much you like Rob Zombie's original Halloween, I think Halloween 2 is one of the most criminally misunderstood and underrated films in this entire franchise, and I think that it is definitely worth giving a shot if you maybe didn't quite get what he was going for in the first film and want to see what he can do whenever the gloves are off and he can make whatever movie he actually wants to make. So Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, despite how much it pisses 98% of you off, I'm gonna say to go out and buy it. So for those of you that haven't unsubscribed to my channel and blocked me on YouTube yet, what did you think of Rob Zombie's Halloween 2? Are you one of the very few of us on this earth that actually likes and understands what Rob Zombie was going for? Or are you one of the rest of the world, the majority, the very loud majority that cannot fucking stand this movie, think it's abysmal, and hate the fact that I'm defending it here on YouTube, officially on record giving it my highest rating available? Sorry. Please like and share this video, hit that subscribe button if you're not already a subscriber. If you guys want to please check out down below in the video description for social media links like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Spreadshirt for Cody Leach t-shirts and other merchandise, and my Patreon page, which is a great way to give back to this channel, help this channel grow, and get cool exclusive content for your eyes only if you decide to become a patron. And if you guys want to check out some more of my videos, such as the rest of this entire Halloween review series, finally wrapping up 10 films, baby, in like 12 days. I'm a beast. And then stick around for Halloween 2018, because that'll be here too. But if you want to check all that shit out, you can check it out by clicking right over here.